Welcome to Speaking from Experience, presented by APR Media. And welcome back to Speaking from Experience. I'm here in studio today with Jacob Cruser, and I'm very, very excited to get to talk to Jacob and talk about the new song that he just released out on Facebook Live and some of the stuff you've been doing previously in music and then getting back into it. But Jacob, first of all, thanks for being here, man, and I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So, Jacob, I'm going to jump right off and start with this. Where did this passion for music and playing come from?
It really started when I was young, probably 4 or 5. My parents kind of took notice that I enjoyed music, and my grandpa had like a little band that he played in, and he lived right down the road right next to me. So every Friday or Saturday night they'd have little get-togethers and they'd play music, and I just always gravitated towards that, and I'd watch them playing old country music growing up. And then my grandpa, he kind of set me down. He was like, hey, you should try and learn some of this. And I just took to it and been playing ever since for the past about 20 years. So.
And I think that's the coolest thing about musicians. In a lot of other areas where people are highly talented, they don't usually invite those that are learning or don't know. And I'm not saying not all the time, but if you've got a really great painter, they don't usually invite you to come work on the same canvas as them.
Yeah.
But I've been to a lot of places, and I still don't know how to play guitar at all. But you sit around the campfire, and it doesn't matter. There may be one of the best guitarists and singers there, and some guy that just picked up the guitar, but they really don't care if you all sit around and you're all picking together and trying to learn and figure it out. So that's a really cool thing about music. It's kind of that communal feel in the community that it builds.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun, and with those campfires, and just that's kind of how I got started too, was once I got older, I'd go out on a Friday night after school and kind of play, and a few words would come together, then within an hour, you could have a song. So that was always really fun to me.
And when you go into that, looking to write a song, how long does it take you to sit down and try and write a song?
They say that some of the best songs people write, it happens within about 30 minutes you can have the whole song. But there's also songs that's taken me, like the song I'm going to play today, it took me just about a year to actually even start it. I tried and just couldn't get the words together and what I wanted to say and how I wanted it to be said. But after, what's been going on in our community for the last month or so now, I just figured it'd be the best time to start this.
And that's the amazing thing to me too, because I'll be honest, probably something that intrigues me more than anything is great songwriters. I love musicians, but those that can really write songs, whether they're a famous musician along with that or they're the guy behind the scenes that's writing songs, I find it amazing, and I love reading books about them, and I love listening to interviews with them. And what you just said amazes me. The best ones are sometimes written in mere minutes.
Yeah.
And then some others, they've got half-written songs that are just missing the chorus or missing a hook or missing the right melody to go with it, or it's missing an element that can sit in a notebook for them for years and years and years. And then, they'll talk about hearing something walking through the mall and they're like, oh my gosh, that's what it needs. This is it. And create another hit. That's just amazing to me that you guys have that mentality. That's something I don't have in that sense. Like I can't sit down and even think about putting together a song. So I find it so intriguing and amazing what you can do.
Yeah, it can come from anywhere, just like you said, you can be walking through a mall and just hear something, or there's been times where, people have been talking to me and they'll just say a line, talking about life or something like that, and it just clicks.
So obviously you start with your grandfather and being around him. So, but why the country music? Why does that connect with you so much?
I think the main thing that just pushed me towards country music so much is there's so much truth in what they say, especially the older songs. They write about life and struggles that people go through, and not only the bad times but the good times. And I feel like for me, I can relate a lot to those songs.
And it's funny because I think a lot of people think that what I would call real country music is dead.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what you hear on the radio today is pop country or arena country. But it's really taken on a whole new genre. I mean, Americana in that sense is a genre of that old storytelling, songwriting, when you start talking about the Tyler Childers,
Yeah.
The Sturgill Simpsons,
Yep.
the Ward Davises, you can go on and on, but Americana has become the resurrection really of that old time country you're talking about, where you're exactly right. You're telling the truth of life, that there are good, but we also all don't live these Facebook lives where we all look perfect either. There's struggles, there's tough times. So I agree. That's what always gravitated me growing up with my parents and my grandparents, was hearing the truth in those songs, and that life was real for those people.
Yeah. And that's another reason why I kind of, wanted to write the song that I did, is just because I know that I'm not the only person dealing with it. There's a lot of people that were closer to a lot of these people, and that I've always coped with things through music, and hopefully that this song helps other people. Kind of, it's not gonna take all the pain away, but just something, just to know that other people's been in that situation.
So obviously you start, your grandpa tells you that you should start learning some of these things. So where do you go from there? Where do you go from being the guy that knows how to play a handful of songs and is great around a campfire, to being the guy that actually wants to perform and write and those kind of things?
Once I started playing, actually I put the guitar down after a couple of years, just because I wasn't taking to it as well as I wanted to. But my oldest sister, she wanted to learn how to play piano. So my dad bought her a piano, and we put it in my room. And after about a week, she gave up on it. And it was just sitting in my room. So I sat down and started playing. My dad actually used to play. And that's actually what I started playing, mainly. And, Chicago, Journey, I just loved listening to that stuff because my parents listened to that too. But by the time I turned 15, that's when I really got back into playing. And got with a band and started out slow. I think our first show we played 5 songs, and a lot of nerves, going into that. But after about 6 months, we were playing 4-hour shows, and we were playing 50 to 60 songs, which is hard. We did a lot of practice. I think we practiced probably 3 or 4 times a week for about 3 hours a night.
Wow.
Trying to get ready for for shows and stuff. And after, getting to travel, like I've been to Iowa, Nebraska, and all these other places, and these big venues, and like 8 Second Saloon and played, and just seeing the crowds and just feeding off that, I just fell in love with it.
And now that first band, that was Sand Creek Soul, correct?
Yes.
Which I was lucky enough to see several times and loved watching you guys. But I think that's another thing that somebody listening may not understand. And I push a lot to go support local live music and people that are out playing, but it's a grind. Not just it's a grind that every Friday and Saturday you're going to be somewhere playing till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And all of you have your own day jobs too that you got to be back up for and ready for. But like you said, there's 4 or 5 nights of practice for 3 hours a night to be ready to go play Friday and Saturday.
Exactly. Yeah, we played. I remember one night we played in Iowa. I think it was might have been Nebraska, but it was like a 10 or 12 hour drive from here. And we played that Friday night down up in Nebraska, I think it was, and Saturday night. And we got done about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, drove home that night, and went and played at Streamcliff at like 1 o'clock that next day, that afternoon.
But it's the grind that you have to take. I mean, no matter what, you have to be willing to go on that grind. And then, so Sand Creek Soul, like a lot of bands, kind of goes their own way.
Yeah.
Which is, I shouldn't say it's cool, because I would love to see you all still together, but it is cool to me to see the success that you guys have had on your individual journeys too. Because all those guys have kind of moved into other bands or other things on their own, and so that's been pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I'm glad they're sticking with it, and I've still talked to them, and we left on good terms, and I hope nothing but the best for them, and I'm sure they feel the same way for me. So seeing them succeed, it makes me feel good too.
So after that, where did you kind of end up with from there?
Well, after I left playing with them, I played a little bit of just my own shows, like up at Brooklyn Pizza and everything, and just kind of around here, and was working a lot, and I was working night shift actually, and just kind of my fault, but I kind of just let everything go for a while and just focused on working and trying to put money back and stuff like that, life things.
Yeah,
and then,
adulting things.
Yeah, which is
unfortunately you have to do.
It's not as fun as they make it out to be when you're young.
No, when you're 15, 16, you can't wait to be an adult. Then when you're an adult, you can't wait to be 15 or 16.
Yeah. But so I've been sitting around and writing and playing, and I just felt like it was about time just to get back out there and play again and kind of make my rounds and just, like you said, get back on the grind about it. So,
how tough is it? You've been in both a band and then performing by yourself. How tough is it to be there without the band and it just be you?
It's different. There's a lot that a band brings when you have that, because there's you have the electric guitar and your drums, and it really fills in what you're doing. But on the other hand, when you're playing just acoustic, it's a more personal, I guess. Especially if you play for these crowds like I did last night at Hippies and Vernon, and you actually have people staring at you, and they're just watching you and listening. But some of these bars, and you go, it's a party crowd, so you're not getting a whole lot of attention. But sometimes you can, but usually people are there playing darts or playing pool and having a good time.
Yeah, they're doing everything else. But...
yeah, and still listening to the music, but on certain shows, just me playing, it's more intimate, I guess.
And I think that's the thing I've always liked is, the opportunities I've been to be to some of those small shows, or even if it's a house party where someone plays, mm-hmm. and where you can really, pay attention to what the lyrics are and mm-hmm. hear them and hear what they're singing about. And I'm sure that show at Hippies was pretty cool, because that's another cool venue mm-hmm. that kind of, when you go there, it's about the music.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that North Vernon and Vernon, Jennings County has something like that now, that it's about the music.
Yeah. You get a lot of good feedback too, when people are really, watching and listening as close as they can, which is great, which I enjoy a lot.
So, and then when you're on your own in that kind of party crowd environment, mm-hmm. do you feel pressure that you have to be even, like we talk about in podcasting, we have kind of our own personalities, but then on some of our shows, we have to be our personality turned up to 10, because you got to try and entertain.
Yes.
Do you feel like that when you're on your own, that you've got to really, if you're in that bar scene and it's a party crowd, I've got to be bigger than the room?
There is a drive to do that, especially when I was playing in the band. We'd play some of these shows where people were just really pumped up to be there, and they were listening real well and having a good time. So you kind of feed off that. You don't really realize that you're jumping around, doing all this crazy stuff. But I think the more that the crowd feeds you, then you feed it back to them, and it's just a circle, and it's great. It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I don't know how many songs did you want to play today?
I got the one, but I could play more.
Well, why don't we go ahead, if you've got one, a different one you want to play, I'll let you play one here, and then we can come back and talk about the new song as well.
All right.
All right.
When I was only 17, I couldn't wait for 21. I'd hang around on Clayton Street in the bars there getting drunk. A baseball cap and a fake ID would get me in the clubs, and I would dance with the college girls and lie about who I was. I'd say I'm pre-med here at UGA, live on Millage Avenue. I was raised over in Bucket, I drive a BMW. I was breaking hearts and taking names and numbers just for fun, stealing kisses, wishing I was 21. Thursdays came and pocket change would quickly disappear. Upstairs at Lowry's Tavern, we'd pay a nickel for a beer. Shooting pool, smoking cigarettes with a dizzy head and a grin. At 4 a.m. on a school night, still hanging out with my friends. When I would sleep on a dirty couch, no shower off to school. Smelling just like a brewer weed with a bad hangover too. The teachers all would hassle me, stay awake, pay attention. I was catching hell, wishing I was 21. The youngest one of all my friends, I didn't act my age. Too cool for the football games and the homecoming parade. Now I'm somewhere in the gray of middle class and middle age. The man in the mirror looks more like my father every day. My clothes are out of fashion and my hair is getting thin. And my favorite conversation starts with "I remember when." So we go down to that college town, dancing at the 80s bars. We drink until we feel a whole lot cooler than we are. And I just look at all them college girls, so innocent and young. And I just check them out and say, damn, I wish I was 21.
You wouldn't know this coming in, but that is one of my favorite all-time songs.
Really?
Yes, Cory Smith. I am a huge Cory Smith fan, so I could have done that in a duet form with you, but you wouldn't have wanted it. You'd have been disappointed, so I had to cut my mic off. But no, I've got to see him live a couple times. One of my favorite artists there are out there.
He's great. He reminds me a lot. I think he was like the first one that kind of led me into like the Tyler Childers and all that. He was kind of the little bit more outlaw. He's not on the radio, unfortunately, but
and that amazes me because he is that kind of cross between kind of the pop country and he's not as outlaw as Tyler Childers and Ward Davis and some of them, but he's not pop either, but he's got some of those pop elements. He's got catchy songs that you would think he would catch on, but I'm a huge Cory Smith fan. So when you hit the first 2 or 3 chords of that song, I was like, oh my gosh, he's playing 21. I just played it upstairs earlier this morning. So
it's a great song.
It is. And so again, when you look at that, when you're trying to build out a set list, how do you kind of determine what I'm going to show up and play at a show?
I base it off, first off, I try and figure out what kind of crowd I'm going to be playing for. If I'm playing for an older crowd, I stick with the Johnny Cash and the Hank Williams, stuff like that. But I still throw, some newer stuff in there in some of my songs. But if I'm playing for people around my age, I try not to go too much past the early 2000s because I don't listen to a whole lot of country music now. But the Tim McGraw and the Kenny Chesney and all those kinds of guys. I really like the 90s country the most.
The new stuff is pretty tough.
Yeah.
I mean, outside of, I'll give Eric Church.
Yeah.
I like some Eric Church stuff. Now, he's kind of gone a little weird on me, but I like Eric Church. Luke Combs, I like a lot.
Yeah.
And that's probably about it.
That's about who I listen to as well.
I hate it. And I've told people before, I've got some pop country songs, but my wife loves pop country, and they're guilty pleasures. They're catchy, just like any pop song.
Yeah.
They're just not real country music.
Exactly.
And what I always compare it to, and I've kind of become a vinyl snob because I love vinyl records. Mm-hmm. And I always think about would I want their entire album on an album. Because albums are so important to me. I'm not part of the whole single revolution. I love putting on Sturgill Simpson, I'm going to listen to it both sides, front to back, and hear it all. So, yeah, there are some that, don't get me wrong, are catchy, and you would probably catch me singing along if I'm in the car with my wife, but overall, there wouldn't be something I'd listen to all the time.
Yeah, and that's an album that I'd like to put out, something that has a little bit of everything in it, but it's something that you can enjoy the whole way through. And it's hard to find, albums like that nowadays. For me, at least, that's, you can listen to the whole thing through and just...
It has a theme. It has a reason why, that's the other thing. I was Cody Eichert I was talking to on here, and we were talking about, that idea of some of those great albums that, whether you're talking about Zeppelin or, the Beatles or some of the crazy things they came up with, they went in with this theme. We're going to do this kind of thing and try to make this whole record have this sound. And today you don't get that because it's about, if I can hit one single, to be honest, if they can hit one or two singles, I think for most of them, the other 10 songs don't matter. They'll produce trash just to put out an album.
Yeah.
And it's sad because that's one of the best things. Even, my wife makes fun of me, but I love even bad albums, like some artists that put out stuff that maybe wasn't that popular with the general public. If it was something they really did something different, I love it because it's something that you won't hear on the radio, that everybody doesn't listen to.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. So let's jump in, though, here with this song, because I'll be honest, obviously, like I said, I had watched you in Sand Creek Soul and got the chance to see that, and I'm a big enough man to sit here and say that when I listened to your song the first time through, I think I was just shocked and numb. And I played it again right away, and my wife came out as I was playing it, and I was tearing up. I mean, it's a very emotional song. It's a very powerful song and a strong song, and like you said, especially with the connection to what has happened here the last few months, but what has happened in our town, especially with young people over the last few years, it really hit home. So I know you said that you had started the song and then had to come back to it. So kind of explain that process for the wait.
Okay, so I believe it was early December last December. The month before that, or a couple months before that, my sister and my grandma were in a terrible car accident. They got somebody ran a stop sign at like 65 mile an hour, and my grandma, she's 80 now, so this was she was 79 at the time, so she was pretty banged up, and my sister had to go into surgery, and then that next, a few months later, I lost my first cousin due to kind of like the similar stuff that's going on, but he was clean for like 15 or 20 years, and just one day just relapsed, and I really wanted to start writing it like while the feelings were fresh, I guess, keep it in my mind. But with so much going on, I just couldn't write it. So about once or twice a week, I'd sit down and try and write something, just get words on a page and maybe figure out some chords. And I actually had a song like halfway started that I was going to be that song, but I kept putting it down because I just didn't want to put something out there that wasn't true. And, when I seen all this happening within the past, like you said, a few months, it seems like every day I was waking up to seeing something happening, and a couple people I didn't know, but a lot of people is just, they were people that were just so loving and just upbeat, that you would never think anything like that. And
huge personalities.
Yeah.
That filled the room, yeah.
And, I was like, I think it's time to actually sit down and not just write this for me and my situation, but if I can get this out there, maybe it'll reach some friends, some families of the people that's passed and help them,
And and it was amazing to see you kind of catch fire on Facebook as well, because I don't even know in your end how many shares it ended up with, but
it was like 70 or something.
I had like 8 shares just on the post I shared, and so it was really cool to kind of see it go around, because I do think it had a great effect on a lot of people.
That's what I was hoping for too, and like you said, I looked at it like a couple days later, and it had like almost 2,000 views on it already. So I'm really happy that it got out there the way it did, and I hope it keeps going. So,
and and it was, I will say, Friday night I had several former football players over here, and we had kind of a little reunion and get together, and it all came out of one of the toughest things I've ever heard a former player or student tell me was at one of the funerals, and they said, "Can we please do something instead of seeing each other at funerals? That's the only time we all are together and see something." And I thought, and it reminds me of what you said about it, becoming an adult. I played with lots of guys and good friends of mine, and coached with lots of great guys when I was in Evansville, and you're around them all the time, and then as you move on, you're not.
Yeah.
And you kind of grow apart, and that was like the thing that hit me when this player said that. I'm thinking, man, you guys are just in your 20s, and you're already feeling this idea that the only time I see everybody is we show up at the funeral home. And so that was important to me to make that change. And I know we talked the other night about your song, and I know it's been a really powerful thing for all of them. So I want to know this, though, before you play it. When you write a song like this that is so emotionally driven and powerful, do you constantly, when you play it, you have to still be feeling those emotions every time?
Yeah, I do. I think that's what makes it special for me, too, because, no matter where I play it, when I play it, I think about my cousin. I think about, all these kids my age that have, that we've lost, and I hope that, maybe one person in the crowd that hasn't heard it, maybe they're going through something, maybe that'll help them. And so, yeah, that's my favorite part about playing it out, is just, not that I want to relive those feelings, but just to know that, they're hearing it, and it's getting around, and people are getting on with their lives, and it's helping them cope with it. So,
well, and I want to just commend you, because one thing that I talked about with some of my friends after the situations that happened, was the idea that as men, we're not upfront and honest all the time. And a good buddy of mine, BJ Robbins, and I did a podcast about some of the mental health issues we've struggled with and the things we've been silent about. So even you coming out and showing your emotion through this song, and that it is real, and it's okay to have emotions. And I think it's important, because I think far too long as men in this world, we think that we just have to burden it all, we have to hide it all, we've got to put on a suit of armor and just make things happen. And at some point, we do got to talk to each other. We've got to be there for each other, because the struggles are real.
Yeah, and the more you hold it in, the harder it's going to be on containing that. And like you said, kind of like the masculine genre that we put on, to be strong and be there for, kids and women and stuff like that. But sometimes you gotta, like you said, you gotta talk about it. And I think that's the main thing too that I'm trying to stress is, if people have, it's okay to talk about that stuff. People go through that stuff. So. And
and it was the hardest thing for me to learn, and I'm probably still not the best at it. But the analogy that in the airplane, you have to put your oxygen mask on first. If you don't put it on first, you can't help anybody else out. And that's exactly what I see there. And that's probably where my whole identity of masculinity has changed, is I thought, as a true man, you did everything for everybody else first. But if you wear yourself down to where you can't be that man, it doesn't no one any good. So being able to take care of yourself and make sure you're healthy is very, very important. So, well, I don't want to wait any longer. And that's about as perfect of a segue as I could lead into the wait. But, this is, like I said, this is a really special song even for me. And I appreciate you coming on to play it.
I'm glad to be here. Besides the dirt and dust on my dash, in the corner there's a photograph. Never thought it'd be the last one we take. I still pull it out now and then. I wipe it off and put it back again. Pull myself together, try and get on with my day. And yeah, I know we said goodbye but I still don't know why. And I give every dollar I ever made to see you a couple hours, if I'm lucky, a whole day. But I know life don't work that way, and it might take a while, but I'll be there someday. If you don't mind the wait. Some days I wake up and I think that you're still here. Then I realize it's all just a dream. And I've talked to God and I've talked to friends, praying that this pain will end. I never knew this world could be so cruel and mean. And yeah, I know we said goodbye, but I still don't know why. And I give every dollar I ever made to see you a couple hours, if I'm lucky, a whole day. But I know life don't work that way, and it might take a while, but I'll be there someday. If you don't mind the wait. Yeah, I know we said goodbye, but I still don't know why. And I give every dollar I ever made to see you a couple hours, if I'm lucky, a whole day. But I know life don't work that way, and it might take a while, but I'll be there someday. If you don't mind, no, if you don't mind, if you don't mind the wait.
Amazing, man.
Thank you.
Amazing. I mean it. You know, and I want to say this. This is the thing that probably gets me as much as anything with that song, and being a father and having two young sons, and also being one that probably struggles as much as anybody with the balance between my profession and home. Mm-hmm. That song smacks me in the face every time with, you know, I'd give all the money I ever make. And I think sometimes we forget that. You know, we chase money, we chase materialism, we chase all those things. And then once we think we've made it, we look back and what we've missed is all the memories and opportunities and the things that are so much more important than the material things. So that song smacks me in a lot of different ways, but that's one. And it reminds me all the time that I need to make sure I'm doing the best I can to balance and make memories with my boys as well as provide. So it's absolutely amazing, man. I mean it.
Thank you.
That is, and I don't say this just to everybody that walks on here, but hands down one of my favorite songs out of anything I listen to, because it's really, really good. So
I'm hoping to record it soon and just I think what I would like to see out of it is, you know, when I go in to record this, is kind of like that Tyler Childers effect, you know, just me and my acoustic. And I think stripping things down like that on certain songs gives it so much more meaning and that intimate.
Yeah, that song does not need a lot of production behind it. And I would agree with you, because I think it will just take away from the words. Because that's the other thing about that song. Every time I think I listen to it and I catch something else that makes me think of something else. Because there's so many other things there. You know, just like I was talking about my boys. Sometimes when I hear it, I think of me telling them, hey, just wait a minute. Yeah. Just wait a minute, then we'll do this. Or wait a minute, we'll do this. And it's like, no, let's just go do it right now.
Yeah.
Quit worrying about the weight of that. And so, no, I think you're exactly right. I think that needs to be raw and just you and that acoustic, because that's pretty special. It was really good on the Facebook Live, but to hear you say here and play it, it's really special. So that's my cheap plug. If you get a chance to go see Jacob live, go see him, because it is well worth hearing The Weight live. So you'd like to go in and record this one. So where are we looking to go from here?
What I'm looking for is, you know, keep playing, keep writing, and, you know, keep writing songs that have meaning like that one. You know, not that situation necessarily, but, you know, write about things that people can, you know, get, you know, understand, and people that will get along with that song, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But, you know, write a good few songs, go in, record, and, you know, hopefully release it. And I'd like to actually maybe just start out with like an acoustic album, kind of like the Tyler Childers thing we was talking about, because, I just think it gives it so much more meaning. And if I can put out another 4 or 5 songs with the same feelings and stuff, the drive and what I'm trying to say here. But anyways, just kind of like something people can relate to, you know?
Yeah, have that emotion.
A good album, and
not just to force an album, but to have an album that you're really proud of.
Yeah, something that people can relate to is what. Yeah.
And obviously, you are you're still young, but obviously moving on. How is it? You know, I know you've got a beautiful young lady over there in the corner that's supporting you, and so how is it now that you're engaged? How is it trying to be a musician and, you know, live up to that?
We've been talking through it, and, you know, we've kind of both know that I'm not going to be able to be here every weekend, you know, and be around the house and stuff like that. But I take her with me as much as I can, so she gets to see the shows and hopefully, you know, branch out and play some Indianapolis and get back out of Indiana, and maybe play out in Iowa again, and kind of just go as far as I can with it is my goal. So.
Well, it's pretty obvious that she's in full support of you, because I don't know if she's paid attention to a word I've said, but every time you play, she's definitely looking over here. So she's in full support. But it is a cool thing, because if you find the one that, you know, supports you in what you do as much as you can support them in their hobbies and interests, it makes things a lot easier. And, you know, it's like my wife and me. People always say, how in the heck do you do a podcast and do all this stuff you do? And, well, it's because my wife enjoys it and she supports me in what I do. And so it's been a positive. So having that is huge as you go forward.
Yeah,
so,
it means a lot to have, you know, people behind you, backing you, not only, you know, family, but friends, you know. So I'm glad I have family and friends that support me. So
absolutely. So I'm going to ask you this. When you look at, you know, we've kind of talked about where your musical influences come from, but, you know, who are your favorite artists right now when you turn on something, or when you're shuffling your playlist on your iPod or your iPhone, what are you listening to?
Usually, see, I even though I play country, I still listen to other stuff. I listen to AC/DC sometimes, and you know, on that side, and then I also usually what I do, if I hear a song, and she can't stand it when I do this, but I will play it 10 times in a row, just repeat and then I end up growing tired of the song. But
and then you never want to hear it again.
Then I don't want to hear it again.
I'm the same exact way.
And then
Because I always complain if I hear it on the radio. I'll be like, all they do is play this song. I don't know how you listen to the radio. My wife's like, no, they don't. You play it all the time, and now you're over it. So,
but my main people I listen to is a lot of Keith Whitley. I really enjoy his music, and I like. I still listen to like Eric Church and Brad Paisley, but usually when I go into like these newer artists, kind of newer. Eric Church is new if you're comparing him to Johnny Cash.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'll go to like some of their early albums and I'll listen to stuff they first put out. And
before they were overproduced.
Yeah, overproduced and getting sold these songs or buying these songs that are upbeat and everything. But I listen to Tyler Childers, like I've mentioned 1,000 times. But I like a lot of
Chris Stapleton is one that we left out.
Yeah.
And I just thought of that when I said the only two I'd listen to is Luke Combs and Eric Church, but Stapleton's right there. And I think one of the most amazing things was him a couple years ago when he first burst on the scene. And they had Song of the Year at the CMAs or whatever, but his song was up, and the other two songs he was against, he wrote those two songs. So 3 of the 4 songs were his. And I just looked at my wife, and I'm like, how do you do that? Like, how do you sell 2 songs, they both make it, and you sing your own and they make it? But the dude is just unreal. And, I mean, he claims he's got notebook after notebook after notebook of songs ready to go, which is just insane to me.
Yeah, and... I went back when Chris Stapleton broke on the scene, with Tennessee Whiskey and stuff, and I actually started going back just to see what he was doing previously, and I went back to when he was playing with the Steel Drivers.
Oh, yeah.
Playing the bluegrass, and, I still listen to that, so.
And that's, I think, my wife makes fun of me all the time, but I have a very crazy taste for music as well. Like, I mean, if you just hit a rant, and I've got several different playlists set up depending on the mood I'm in, but if you just hit shuffle all of my iPhone, you may get AC/DC to Dave Matthews to bluegrass to hip-hop to old school country. I mean, it is, like, my wife just shakes her head at me. She's like, I don't know how this is coming on now. Like, there's no, but just anything, I guess, that connects with me or speaks to me, I think is something that, I really enjoy and really like. So, because even in hip hop, I think there's some guys that tell stories. And, my mom always gets mad at me, but I always say that, there's guys in hip hop that are closer to old school Johnny Cash country than what new country is, because they're telling a story. It's a totally different sound. Don't get me wrong, but the same thing, the truth, the stories, the things are right there in what they're telling.
Yeah.
So you've got all those influences that kind of come together, and obviously you want to look here to putting out your own acoustic album. Any interest in the future of putting back together a band, or is it really right now you want to kind of do it on your own?
I think kind of get back out there on my own at first and get some songs going, and when she gets out of college, we plan on moving to Nashville. So I got actually, quick story. Have you ever heard of Ashley McBride? She's like a newer country singer that just came out. Back when I was with Sand Creek Soul, me and Jacob Asher went down there just to kind of check out the scene, and we had a couple of friends that were playing down there, and they took us around, and we just went all over Nashville that one day, and we went into this little rinky-dink bar just to watch this like songwriters thing. And Ashley McBride was on stage singing. And, there was probably 100 people there maybe. And she got down off the stage, and she came and talked to us and met us and, said, hey, it's nice to meet you. And that's the last I heard of her, and now she's on the radio. So
it is, I'll tell you, Nashville's one of my favorite cities to go to, and it is crazy because any little bar down there has someone ultra talented in it.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. We went down there several years ago, and we were at a little bar, and all of a sudden it wasn't last call, but they were like, hey, anybody wants a drink? We're not going to do anything for about 20 minutes here, and the kitchen's going to be shut down. I'm like, I've never been to a bar where they like stop serving like right in the middle of the night. And I found out why, because all of a sudden, no joke, the guy out of the kitchen comes out with his like apron on and all nasty and greasy, and the bartender walks up and she sings, he plays guitar, the bouncer comes up and plays drums, and they had their whole country band there together, but they had to shut everything else down. So they'd go up and play for 20, 30 minutes, and then they'd come back and go back to work. And I'm like, and they were awesome. I'm like, I just looked at him like, how are you guys not just playing all the time? And she said, we got to pay bills too. And so we're lucky they let us do this here at this little bar. And I'm like, I have never seen anything like this, but ultra talented people. Yeah. And it's amazing because you never know who's that next person that's gonna break out.
It's crazy because, I mean, like you said, everywhere you go down there, especially if you're going down the main strip there, just bands everywhere, and everybody's excellent. Everybody's so good.
And I think it's exciting right now. As much as I'm negative about, the single, everybody just producing singles and that kind of stuff. Yeah. I think you are at a very lucky time in music because that independent musician is something, when we talk about the Tyler Childers and, Ward Davis and all of that kind of Americana music, they don't have to sign with huge record labels.
No.
They don't have to be on the power of the radio has been stripped away.
Yeah.
So you can really make it and go on these, go on very successful tours without having to be huge radio play and all of those kind of things.
I think that's one of the good things about social media now is there's so many artists, and just not in country music, but just all kinds of genres just coming out and, making a living just from posting stuff on Facebook and YouTube. And
absolutely. And, and I think it's cool, Garth Brooks is one of my all-time favorite entertainers, and I just love watching him. But he's kind of even went back with this whole dive bar tour.
Yeah.
And I listened to an interview with him the other day, and he said, it was amazing. He walked in one bar in Oklahoma that he played when he was first coming up, and they still had the picture of him and the manager behind the counter from like 30 years ago. But, and he said it was so cool for him to go back and do that. And I thought, for a guy that for 20 plus years have played sold out arenas, how cool would it be to be back in a dive bar with 250 people in it and just getting to tear the house down?
Yeah.
So I think we're seeing a lot of that move back to that local music scene and those kind of things. So the plan is to go to Nashville and try and make it work there.
Yeah.
Scary or exciting?
Little both. But, I've talked to her about this, and, like you said, there's a lot of people out there making a living doing it that aren't signed. So that gives me a lot of hope that you don't have to be, signed to Universal Studios or Broken Bow Records with Jason Aldean to go out there and make a name for yourself.
And, and sometimes I think it's probably the smarter way because depending on the terms you get on some of those record deals, I don't know what Childers is making, but he's got to be doing all right because he's selling a lot of CDs on his own. Yeah. I mean, so he's got to be doing okay with what he's doing. So when you look at that, though, and you kind of talk about that, could you ever see yourself just being a songwriter and writing for someone else?
See, I really enjoy songwriting, so yeah, I could. I mean, there's really good money in that too, which it's not all about the money to me. It's more about just going out and having fun and playing music. But yeah, I could see myself doing that, and a lot of because I watch a lot of interviews on artists and how they got their start, and not just country, but the Eagles and all these guys, and they usually start out as songwriters, and that's what happened with Jason Aldean, because he signed a songwriter contract, and his contract was up within like 2 weeks, and he said that in his interview that he was applying for jobs back in his town at factories, and between that 2 weeks and the end of his contract, he wrote Hicktown, and they signed him as a performer.
And that is the crazy thing, and that's the only thing about being a songwriter is I think it's so tough to decide if you're going to try and take that next step, which one do you hold back?
Yeah.
Because Hicktown would have been one that you could see him selling to somebody at that point.
Yeah.
But, and I guess that's what also amazes me about Stapleton is he's doing it both. He's able to sell things and, still write for himself. Ed Sheeran's another guy that amazes me with that. He writes all these songs for everybody else and then turns around and still puts out, gold albums. And so I do think that's amazing, but I still think it would be cool to even hear someone else kind of take their turn on your song and the way they interpret it and perform it.
Yeah. And see, that's when I first started really getting into music. I was searching, and just looking at all these great songs that were coming out and realizing that the people singing them weren't the ones that were writing them. Because I'm sure you heard the song Good Directions by Billy Currington.
Oh, yeah.
Luke Bryan wrote that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and they actually have a recording of him playing it. It's completely different. But it's just weird that you would think it's the people singing it would be writing it. But
and, I think that... I guess that's what sometimes bothers me about where country music has gotten to.
Yeah.
In the sense that, right there, Luke Bryan can write.
Yeah.
And he's a musician, but it's so much more money for the industry for him to just take other songs and be overproduced and do some of those things. And I wish some of those guys would step away and strip themselves back down and write music and those kind of things as well. But, so yeah, it's a crazy thing when you start looking at, and that's another reason why I hate the online music thing. One of the coolest things, when I was a kid, was getting a CD, and you still could look at who wrote the songs, who performed on the songs. I grew up a Dave Matthews fan, so anytime Tim Reynolds was on a song, that was a big deal as a guitar player.
Yeah.
These other guys that would come in and out of the band. So I think that's something that's lost too. So I think it's cool that you have that history of wanting to go back and see where those songs came from.
Yeah. And that's what I like about writing my own, songs and being at this stage is because I'm not buying them from somebody else. And, I feel like it'd be hard to have a connection with the song that somebody else wrote. I do too.
I mean, I just like I said, when I listen to you play The Weight, I don't know that anybody else... Someone would really have to connect with that song emotionally in a way for it to mean something to them, to mean the same.
Yeah.
So, well, brother, we are at 53 minutes already. It goes fast.
It does. I thought that was about 15 minutes.
Do you want to play one more before you leave?
Yeah. Give me 1 second.
No, you're fine.
Think of a song here.
We'd love to hear one more.
All right. I said, Grandpa, what's this picture here? It's all black and white and ain't real clear. Is that you there? He said, yeah, I was 11. Times were tough back in 35, and that's me and Uncle Joe just trying to survive a cotton farm. The Great Depression. And if it looks like we were scared to death, like a couple of kids just trying to save each other, you should have seen it in color. This one here's taken overseas in the middle of hell in 1943 in the wintertime. You could almost see my breath. That was my tail gunner, old Johnny McGee. He was a high school teacher from New Orleans, and he had my back right through the day we left. And if it looks like we were scared to death, like a couple of kids just trying to save each other, you should have seen it in color. A picture's worth 1,000 words, but you can't see what those shades of gray keep covered. You should have seen it in color. This one here's my favorite one. This is me and Grandma in the summer sun, all dressed up. The day we said our vows. You can't tell it here, but it was hot that June, and that rose was red and her eyes were blue. Just look at that smile, I was so proud. That's the story of my life, right there in black and white. And if it looks like we were scared to death, like a couple of kids just trying to save each other, you should have seen it in color. A picture's worth 1,000 words, but you can't see what those shades of gray keep covered. You should have seen it in color.
You nailed it, man.
Thank you.
That's one of my favorites too. I painted my whole first house I bought with Jamie Johnson CDs and knew them front and back. So that's one of my favorites as well. But Jacob, man, you're ultra talented. I appreciate you coming on today. I appreciate what you're doing. I love the new song. And I got to be honest, even though I am a huge Cory Smith fan, love Jamie Johnson, but your song's the best thing you played today, and I'm not just saying that, man. I mean it. That song means a lot. Good luck in everything you do. The only promise I'm going to ask is two things. Number one, you get everything recorded, come back on, and let's talk about it as we release something. And when you hit it big in Nashville, don't forget the first podcast that sat down and talked to you.
I won't. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it, brother, and wish you all the best. Any other shows you got lined up that you want to let people know about?
Not right now, but I'm working on getting something hopefully this next weekend, and just kind of keep it going every weekend for a little while, and then get back out there and get some new songs coming and writing some new songs.
So if you're interested in going and seeing Jacob, kind of follow his Facebook or follow the Speaking From Experience Facebook. I'll share everything out that he's got going on, and we'll try and make sure that everybody gets out to see him play.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you.